Hello, everybody. It's Goomer22. Early morning on the Monday here, doing some tier list stuff for the VDL. I just saw M Batista's video come out, so if you haven't watched that, check it out. But he went over a bunch of good tier changes. I think for the VDL, based on this past season and just general tier structure. I pretty much agreed with everything he talked about in that video. In terms of the tier shifts, I definitely think tier 4, based on the new point system, was underpowered, and tier 5 seemed like it had a ton more value. I grabbed two tier 5s, so that definitely lines up with that. Makes sense. Um, and I think with the tiering, I know some people want to base it based on how certain mons performed on certain teams. Um, I think a couple examples could be like one with like my Heatmore. Now Heatmore, you could move it to tier 4. I don't think it's that bad, but I could also see an argument for keeping it in tier 5. Like the thing was, if you look at the stats of the Heatmore on my team, it it definitely looked like it performed like a tier 2 or 3 for sure. It definitely wasn't a tier 5 if you look at the stats. But I think the only reason that happened is because of the other, like the tier, uh, you know, the tier 1, 2s, and 3s that I picked up that sort of enabled Heat more. And I used those stronger Pokemon to help support a low tier Mon that just happened to fit a niche. So, like, I think for the most part, when tiering Pokemon, you want to look at how it will perform in a vacuum, right? But then you also want to, so that's like base stats, move pool, right? But then you also want to look at like how much like synergy potential does this Pokemon have? I think on most teams, Heatmore is not going to shine like that. I think it happened to fit a niche role on my team, and it's not normally going to do that. So, but I mean, you could move it up to tier 4 if you want. But like I think so. Like another good example is Pokemon like uh, any sort of weather abuser, right? Venusaur or something like that. Like Venusaur in a vacuum, it's like it's not that great. It's like okay, you'll get stats and whatnot. But then you're like, well, if you pair it with a Sunsetter, it gets exponentially more value in this, and so it's like how good is it? I mean, obviously the best example is like Gigas Wheezing. It's like Gigas on its own team isn't going to do great, but when with certain partners, Gigas can be enabled, can do super well, so you can't put it too low. If you're looking at Gigas in a vacuum, you might throw it in tier 4. If you're looking at Gigas in terms of when it's paired with good partners, which it's fairly easy to do that, you might put it in tier 3 or 2. So like there is a little bit of nuance to it, but I think some of these Pokemon, like it's hard just to look at them in a vacuum or whatnot, or how they performed on a certain team. They might have performed well, but that could have been a circumstance. Or, for example, a Pokemon like Dragapult. It's like, oh, okay, well, Dragapult didn't do well. Well, maybe Dragapult specifically didn't fit well on this person's team, or they just didn't use it well. So it's like then you can't really go necessarily based on the stats of the previous season because there's a lot of variance to it. But I'm just going to go down here and see if there's anything that sticks out to me as kind of weird tier placements. But yeah, other than that, the one change I think that's, and honestly I don't think there's a right answer to this question, but I would say the one weird thing with all the changes proposed by Gumi and Batista, and that Batista talked about, was T-Tar Gigalith. And I think the awkward thing is, I think in an ideal world, you have them in the same tier, and they're in tier like 1.5, between tier 1 and 2. Like, they feel like they're really good tier 2 picks, but they're not the best tier 1 picks. And I feel like that's just this awkward dance that they've been in. And, like, for me personally, like, okay, if you put T-Tar in tier 2, I'm probably gonna try it out there. You know, like that's a high consideration. I don't know if I'd try it out in tier one, but um, I don't know, just because I think it'd be interesting, and I never really see an opportunity to draft T-Tar because it's always in tier one, which makes sense. I mean, it's strong, but yeah, I totally get all the arguments for them, and I think ultimately they're probably closer to the same value. Um, you know, T-Tar does get other abilities like Unnerve, which is kind of cool, but uh, but yeah, I think the other thing is, I mean, T-Tar, like, yeah, its speed tier is a little more awkward, but like you could scarf it, and you can do like Scarf Assurance or Scarf Rock Slides, whereas you're always gonna be playing Gigalith pretty slow. So there are there are some differences there, but like, um, yeah, I think ideally they'd be the same tier and they'd be like tier 1.5, but you can't do that. So we're just gonna have to figure it out and place them somewhere. I don't know. All right, so let's see if there's anything that sticks out to me. Totally agree on the age slash going down. Most of these Pokemon I think make sense. Keep the redirectors together. Yeah, Conk I could see moving down. I think it's pretty good. I know Gumi, I think proposed Dragonite go down. I think Dragonite's really solid. I think keep it in tier one. I think Excadrill's a weird one for me. I never felt like Excadrill was that great, but like, um, you could probably keep it in tier one. All right. What else? Hatterene. I think Gumi may have proposed this in his doc. Hatterene moving down. I actually don't mind that. I feel like Hatterene would be interesting in tier two. I think that would be an interesting placement there. I mean, it does have pretty solid defenses, but or no, actually, no. I think it might actually. It just has really low HP, but yeah, I think that's an option. Most of these other Pokemon, yeah, I agree with Naganadal going down. I think Gumi may have proposed the Rotoms. The Rotoms are really solid. That Electric and Levitate combo, which is so unique, like that's so nice, especially Rotom Heat. I don't know. I think that's pretty good. Tapu's makes sense. Yeah, I think all these make sense to stay in tier one. I think tier one looks pretty solid. Tier two, um, I yeah, I agree with Archeops and Aerodactyl. I've used them both. I think Aerodactyl's a little better, so I agree with that being a little bit higher. I think Alakazam's got good value. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Most of this makes sense. Um, let's see. You could maybe make an argument for Braviary tier three. I haven't used it a ton though, so I don't know. Um, it's got strong stab, Brave Birds, and Defiant though. That's pretty solid. Let's see here. Anything that sticks out to me? I like a lot of these in tier two. I think Ludicolo, like Gumi said, I think that's probably a tier three mon. I think that lines up with kind of the value I'm seeing here, and like, I definitely agree with that. Um, so Ludicolo's another one. Um, I like a lot of these Pokemon. Um, let's see. Yeah, I think these three slows are better than the other slows, so I agree with that. Um, let's see. Is Tangela tier 4? Hold on. No, Tangela's tier 3. Okay. That's a little weird to me. I feel like this is another tough one, to be honest. I feel like Tangela and Tangrowth are like, you can go offensive Tangrowth, but I think the bulk on Tangela, especially on the special side, is really underrated, and like Tangela still has some good offensive on the special side. So that's a little bit of a tricky one for me. I'd almost want to put him in the same tier. I don't know that Tangela is a tier 2 value, so I'd almost be tempted to put Tangrowth in tier 3 with Tangela. I think that's kind of fair. I mean, you have I think interestingly, you have the reverse problem of like the Dusknoir Dusclops, where it's like, oh, you have all this item versatility, it's awesome. But I think the fact that you can run status moves on Tangela while boosting its special defense and rage powdering is a big difference with Tangrowth. So like Tangrowth, you want to boost its. They both have bad special defense, but Tangela you can run Eviolite, you can run Protect and Rage Powder. Tangrowth you have to run AV, which means you can't run those other moves. Rage Powder, Protect, Sleep Powder, anything like that. So I think Tangrowth also, like, you can go offensive, but the thing is, like, you have high attack, you have high special attack. You're only going to pick one every match on what you're going to do. So once you pick, like, okay, I'm running Leaf Storm this game. Okay, well, that attack stat being high is just useless, pretty much. So, like, it doesn't help. Whereas, okay, you're like, oh, I'm going to run Leaf Blade, or I don't even know what Tangrowth gets, but then you're not using your special attack stat. So then that's all that stat is useless. So I think Tangrowth is probably a tier 3 if Tangela is, and I think it is. So I think that makes sense. Uxie's a weird one. I really don't know about like the whatever they call it, the lake fairies or whatever they are, but the lake spirits. They're weird to me. The Weezings are interesting to me too. I know Otto really likes Weezing Galar being higher because of the Misty Terrain, but I really think the fact that regular Weezing can only have one weakness if you go Levitate is really powerful. I feel like they're similar, but I don't know where I'd want to put them. I'd want to put them in tier 2.5. So I don't know if people feel like they're more tier 3s or more tier 2s. I'd almost be tempted to throw Weezing down there. But, okay. So that makes sense. I think that tier 2 makes sense. Tier 3. Tier 3 was pretty solid to me. Like when drafting, I felt like there was a lot of good value and wow, Duraludon's in tier 3. That's kind of surprising to me, to be honest. I think you could almost put Duraludon in tier 2. Ignoring redirection is pretty nice. But I don't know. That's something interesting. The Exegutors are interesting. They're not. The 4x weakness is a little weird. I feel like you could almost place these in tier 4, but maybe not. Like, I'm trying to think if, like, something like Decidui or other stuff has more value. I don't know. I feel like you could almost make an argument for these if somebody wanted to, but I don't feel super strongly about them, so you could just keep them where they are too. I mean, even though Guzzlord does have insane stats, it's like, okay, yeah, Durant has really high speed and attack. It's just ability sucks. 4x weakness. I think typing sucks with Guzzlord, so I don't know. You could put Guzzlord down in tier 4, but that might be a bad move. I don't know. What else? I'm not sure if people weren't taking Lilligant because it's tier 3, because I know it was on the never used list, but I feel like it's pretty solid. Well, where's Venusaur? Is Venusaur in tier? Venusaur's also tier 3. They do different things though, so I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, like Mesprit's down here and Uxie's in there. I'd be more tempted to take Mesprit. I think Azelf's also here. I don't know that Uxie's the best of them 3. I think you could maybe drop Uxie to tier 3 if the other 2 are here. I feel like they all do different things, but I mean they all have the same base stats, and it's like, what role do you want to fill? Mesprit's a flex. Azelf's offensive, Uxie's defensive, but I think they all have very, very similar move pools. So I don't know. I'd be tempted to put Uxie in tier 3. I think this makes sense. Yeah, the Pelipper going up makes sense. I think a lot of this is pretty solid. Scolipede would be fun to try. I really don't know. I know people were talking about throwing it in tier 3 or 4. I think it's a toss-up there. I can't really say. Yeah, you could move Swampert to tier 2 potentially, especially if you have stuff like Slowking or Suicune moving up. I don't know. You could, yeah, that's interesting. Um, Everything else looks pretty solid, I would say. Okay, tier 4. Tier 4, yeah, Arctovish, throw it up there. That makes sense. Ba 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 ba. Let's see. This could be a hot take, but I feel like I'm almost tempted to throw Colossal down with these 4x weaknesses. Like, what do you actually think you could get more value out of? Colossal or Dreadnought? Like, I guess you could Aqua Jet Colossal and it won't die. It'll take like half its health. And you can throw off Weakness Policy Heat Waves. So that is something you could do. Yeah. I don't know. That's a weird one for me. I feel like no one. I feel like it's just so hard to use Colossal and non-max. You could. I feel like you could almost argue it for tier 5. Let's see. I think these other ones make sense. Let's see. Phalanx, I feel like you could drop to tier 5. I don't think Phalanx. Like I know, like it has that nice setup move, no retreat, but like it's just got such awkward stats. But it does have Defiant. I don't know. I feel like I'd draft some tier 5 stuff over Phalanx right now though. So maybe that's just me. Flapple, I think you could almost argue Flapple tier 5 to be honest. But okay, but at the same time, this whole the whole ordeal that Batista talked about was giving tier 4 more value. So maybe I'd be a little more hesitant to move stuff from 4 to 5, even if I think that's where it necessarily belongs. Yeah, maybe I should be more hesitant when moving stuff to tier 5 because I think buffing up tier 4 in comparison to tier 5, I think is a solid move. I think that's one fix I think would be really interesting. What else? I feel like Luxray should kind of be tier 3. I don't know. I feel like Luxray has 2 really good abilities, Guts and Intimidate, and it's got a good speed tier, especially for like Scarf and stuff. And I don't know. I think it's like better than Electivire, probably, or maybe it's like maybe comparable to Electivire in terms of like an electric type. So, I don't know. I feel like you could almost argue moving Luxray up. Let's see what else. I feel like most of these are still pretty solid. Like, yeah, I like where a lot of these are placed. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like a lot of that. And I think with the tier 5s, some of the... Okay, if you were going to move any of them up to tier 4, you could maybe argue Sudowoodo. I think that's a solid one that could maybe go to tier 4. You could maybe argue Shiftry, but I don't know. What else? I don't think Quillfish is that bad, but I mean you still need some usable stuff in tier 5. So Piloswine sort of felt like a tier 4, the way that M's used it. I don't know, but and I don't want to use just stats again, like I said, but I think with Eviolite, it's got some decent bulk. You've got nice priority with Ice Shard, and it's still got solid attack. So like it's and you can go thick fat and be even bulkier. So I don't know. I'd have to look more into Piloswine, but you might want to keep it down there. Mantine, obviously, I think it's only going to really shine on a rain team, but that's a toughie. Because I feel like like it's the type of thing where it's like in a vacuum, it's probably tier 5, but then on a rain team, is it a little bit better? it does get some nice tools. So you might be able to argue it tier 4. I don't know. Everything else, I mean, there are definitely some stuff in tier 5 that feels a little weird, but at the same time, like, I never see people really draft or use them, so there's got to be a reason for that. So, that, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think I like generally where tier 5 is at, and especially if we just go with all of those Batista tier tier 5 to 4 movements that he talked about. I think throwing up stuff like Lopunny and Purloin and Persian. I think those all make a lot of sense, and yeah, I think I can get behind some of those. But those are my general tier takes. Overall, this last season felt like it was really, really solidly tiered in general, though. I agree that tier 4 was kind of the only awkward one to pick from. Obviously, you're going to be like, hey, you won, so you're going to say the tiering was perfect. But I really did think it was pretty good. Bias aside. So, those were my takes. And, yeah, let me know what you think. Talk about it in the Discord. Peace.